Right now, within arm's reach of wherever you are sitting, there is almost certainly a roll of soft, white paper. You don't think about it. You replace it when it runs low. You feel a flicker of mild panic when it's gone, and otherwise it is completely invisible to you. The average person in the developed world uses around 100 rolls of it every single year. Over a lifetime, that is roughly 384 trees, pulped, bleached, wrapped in plastic, and flushed away. It is one of the most ordinary objects in your entire life. And here is something almost nobody stops to consider. For more than 99% of the time that human beings have existed on this planet, not one single one of them ever touched it. No paper, no wet wipes, no bidet, no plumbing at all. For 300,000 years, your ancestors solved this exact, daily, completely unavoidable problem with their bare hands and the world around them. So how did they actually do it? The answer is stranger, older, and far more clever than you think. Let's start with the simplest fact, the one that quietly reframes everything. Defecation is not a modern problem. It is one of the oldest problems a body has. Every animal that has ever walked the earth has had to deal with it, and the human animal is no exception. What changed across history was never the act itself. What changed was the cleanup and the place where the cleanup happened. Because for almost all of human history, there was no room, no door, no porcelain, no privacy as you understand it. A human being woke up inside an open landscape, walked a short and deliberate distance from where the others slept, and crouched down on the bare ground in the open air. We know this with certainty because the ground itself remembers. Across archaeological sites spanning tens of thousands of years, in dry caves, frozen bogs, and ancient salt mines, scientists keep uncovering the same preserved thing. Not tools, not weapons, not art. Feces. Hardened, mineralized, and waiting patiently to be read. It is, when you stop to think about it, the most honest record a human being ever leaves behind. In archaeology, these are called coprolites, and to a certain kind of scientist, they are nothing short of treasure. The single most famous one in the world was pulled from beneath a bank in the city of York, in England, in the year 1972. Archaeologists excavating a site that had once been a thriving Viking settlement uncovered an intact, fossilized human stool nearly 9 inches long, dated to around the 9th century. It was studied, catalogued, and eventually given a formal insurance valuation of £39,000, very possibly making it the single most expensive piece of excrement on the face of the earth. But it was never valued as a joke or a curiosity. The paleopathologist Andrew Jones examined it closely and found it absolutely riddled with the eggs of intestinal parasites, whipworm and mawworm, evidence of a diet and a sanitary world utterly unlike our own. That one object told researchers what a person ate, what lived inside their gut, what ailed them, and how they lived 1,000 years ago. The dead, it turns out, are still patiently telling us how they clean themselves. And here is where it gets genuinely extraordinary, because the materials these people used to clean themselves left their own quiet trace, preserved alongside the waste. In the prehistoric salt mines of Hallstatt in Austria, the conditions deep underground are so dry and so saturated with salt that human waste has survived for over 2,000 years almost perfectly intact. And inside it, researchers recovered the actual fibers of the plants people had eaten and used. In sites scattered across the world, the same pattern repeats again and again. Carl Reinhardt, a paleopathologist who has spent an entire career reading the contents of ancient human bowels, has identified the remains of leaves, seeds, grasses, charcoal, and plant fiber passing through and around the body. And the conclusion that emerges from all of it is simple and strangely humbling. Before there was ever paper, there was the planet. Smooth riverstones, soft moss, broad leaves chosen with the same care you might give to choosing a fabric, handfuls of dry grass, clean snow in the cold months, fine sand near the deserts, and water, always water, wherever it ran. The human hand and whatever the human hand could reach. The whole world was the bathroom, and the whole world was the supply. So what did people actually do? Across thousands of cultures and tens of thousands of years, a handful of brilliant, practical methods appear again and again. Consider them. Water. In vast regions of the world, from the Indus Valley to the Middle East to South Asia, the answer was simply the left hand and a vessel of clean water. Direct, hygienic, deeply effective, and used to this very day by well over half of the entire human population. Leaves. Soft, broad, and abundant wherever forests grew, leaves were the original wipe on every green continent, chosen and tested for texture the way you choose between brands on a shelf. Stones and ceramic. The ancient Greeks used small, smooth, oval pebbles and broken shards of old pottery called pessoi, sometimes deliberately inscribed with the carved names of their personal enemies. Corn cobs. Across the Americas, the dried cob, once stripped of its kernels, was a completely standard tool well into the modern era, kept in a tidy stack right beside the outhouse door. Moss and grass. In the cold and wet north, soft sphagnum moss, naturally absorbent and mildly antiseptic, was prized and gathered above almost every other material a person could find. The sponge on a stick. The Romans, in their grand public latrines, shared a single communal sea sponge fixed to the end of a long wooden handle, a thing they called a tersorium, rinsed in a channel of running water or vinegar between each user. Let that sink in. Shared. Between total strangers. On a long stone bench, side by side, with no walls of any kind between them. But that is only half the story, and honestly, what comes next is even stranger. Because somewhere along the way, the open landscape disappeared, and the human body was quietly moved indoors. The mine took the cave. The city took the open field. The wall took the wide horizon. The pipe took the running stream. And the sitting porcelain throne, that great invention we are all so deeply proud of, took away the one single posture the human body had used for 300,000 years. You were never designed to sit down to do this. You were designed, from the ground up, to squat. And when human beings stood the toilet up and sat themselves down on top of it, something quiet and deeply physical was lost in the exchange. The angle of the body changed. The ease of the act changed, and a whole catalog of distinctly modern afflictions slowly walked in through the very door we had just proudly closed behind us. We gained the privacy. We gained the comfort. We quietly lost the ease our bodies were built around. So here is the part almost nobody ever talks about. In the year 2003, a physician named Dov Sakirov ran a simple, almost comical study in Israel. He had volunteers empty their bowels in 3 different physical positions, and he carefully timed every one of them, measuring how hard each person had to strain. Sitting on a standard modern toilet took an average of around 130 seconds and demanded real, repeated effort. Squatting, the ancient ancestral position, took only around 51 seconds and felt subjectively far easier and more complete. The reason is the precise angle of a single muscle that wraps around the lower bowel like a sling, the puborectalis. Squat down low, and it relaxes completely, and the passage straightens out. Sit upright, and it stays partly kinked, and you spend your time pushing helplessly against your own anatomy. Decades before that, the great surgeon Dennis Burkitt had noticed something deeply related. In rural communities still eating the high-fiber diet of our distant ancestors, the very diseases now filling entire wings of Western hospitals, hemorrhoids, diverticulitis, bowel cancer, were extraordinarily, almost impossibly, rare. The body, it seemed, had not failed at all. The world around the body had simply changed far faster than the body ever could. So go back to that roll of paper sitting within arm's reach of you. It is soft, it is clean, it is one of the small, genuine comforts of being alive in this particular century, and there is no shame at all in being quietly grateful for it. But understand exactly what it sits on top of. For 300,000 years, a body shaped precisely like yours crouched low to the ground in the open morning air, reached for a smooth, cool stone, or a soft handful of moss, or the clear running water of a stream, and did, without a single conscious thought, the most ordinary thing that a living body can do. It used the planet. It left almost nothing behind but a faint trace in the soil that we are somehow still reading and pricing and marveling at today. You have inherited that exact same body, the same wiring, the same ancient, unglamorous, perfectly engineered machinery. You have simply hidden it behind a locked door and a soft white roll, and slowly convinced yourself that it was never really there at all. And tonight, when you reach for that paper without thinking, somewhere far underneath the gesture, an older version of you is still crouched beside the water in the early light, perfectly at ease, perfectly unbothered, and perfectly home.